I've introduced in the past and have this session as well, that we should have a constitutional amendment to allow annual budget sessions. And I think that what we're about to go through is going to allow me to make the case.
We're back here, ladies and gentlemen. Estamos de regreso. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches, donde quieran que se encuentren. Estamos aquí en What the Peg. Remember, sustainability speaks louder. That's our little catchphrase. And I hope everybody at home is relaxing. If you're not, if you're at work or wherever you may be, please join us. Acompáñenos con una cervecita, ya sea un cafecito, no sé, lo que quieran tomarse, un tecito, un tequilita, lo que quieran tomar para relajarse y escuchar un poquito de la sustentabilidad y cómo nos rodean todas las funciones de nuestra vida cotidiana. Tenemos hoy un invitado muy especial. We have a really, really special guest. We call him our friend here at What the Peg, and we're honored and blessed to have people like him support us. And we have nothing but good things to say. This is our take 2, so we'll touch on it. But I want to, first of all, thank him for giving us a second shot, and welcome. Please help me welcome our state rep, Richard Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Lucita.
Salud. You go, brother.
Salucita. También tenemos por aquí a mi compadre Rafita.
¿Cómo están, amigos?
Rafa, y a mi compadre Luis Carlos, que pues nos van a acompañar aquí a platicar con el representante de Texas, del distrito de nuestra área, aquí en el sur de Texas, a lo que tengo entendido. Y pues sí, I want to first start off by saying, again, thank you, Mr. Raymond, for giving us another shot. And we had an awesome podcast already. So this is take 2. Just to give you a little bit of background, we laughed, we cried, we
sang,
we did everything. We had our beers, and we were editing the podcast and getting ready to publish it, and turns out the audio was corrupted y no se grabó el audio. Imagínate, casi 2 horas de platicar así con madre y que te digan de que, oye, el audio no se grabó. Y deja tú, no es como que mi compadre aquí de enseguida fue con Richard Raymond. Y es de que, ching. Dije,
I think it was the Russians. Eran los rusos.
Eran los rusos, güey. Así como lo hicieron, pues yo creo que fue either Trump o los rusos. Yo le echo la culpa a Trump. Pero sí, no, muchas gracias, Richard.
Yes,
aquí estamos.
Aquí estamos.
So, salud en casita. So,
Yes, sir.
ahorita estábamos hablando que ya va a ser where it's going to be, it's almost November 8th, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's one of the challenges that we're looking forward to. But I need to also kind of recap. Richard Raymond has been part of. I was born and raised in Texas, originally from Benavides, Texas.
Yeah.
And how was growing up here in Texas?
Great. I was born in Alice. That was the closest hospital.
Okay.
And then grew up in Benavides, town of 1900. But all my family on my father's side is here in Laredo, and so I've come here all my life, and I was always excited. I was always excited to come because it was a big city,
Right.
and because I had all my cousins here and so forth. So
In Laredo.
aquí en Laredo, yeah.
Okay.
So it, many years later when I ended up moving here, it was just felt good, felt like the right thing to do. But growing up, pues en los pueblitos, it's funny because you're not bored. There's more out there, and you read a lot, and I read a lot. But we had 3 channels on TV at the time.
Yeah.
Corpus Christi TV. We didn't get Laredo TV. And but I was interested in what was going on in the world around me. And small town Texas is wonderful.
So 19.
But Laredo was just was great.
It was pulling you for some reason. You had a calling to do in Laredo.
Well, again, it's like as soon as you can, you're old enough to understand what's going on when you're 3, 4 years old, whatever. From then, every time I'd come, because I usually would come with my grandparents. They'd come every weekend. They lived in Freer, because my grandfather worked for Texaco and the camp was out there. But they would come every weekend, and so I'd come with them since I could remember. I was so excited. And I had one of my great-grandmothers lived till I was 21, so I was very close to her too. So I was just very lucky, to have family here in Nuevo Laredo. I mean, it was all just growing up. It was just wonderful, and then now to see these last 2, 3 decades, how much Laredo has grown, right?
Yeah.
How much has happened and is happening, and to be part of it, I've just been lucky,
You feel good about the future of Laredo?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I was thinking about this earlier today, when looking at the growth in Laredo and the opportunities. I was we did a little press conference with Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We established the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce last year. And, they were talking about some of the people that were going to recognize for their work. One of the gentlemen, Ernesto Gaetan, transportista, and he's got a company, and he got up there at the press conference and talked about when he started, right? And he just started a little company. Now it's a pretty big company, right? But Ernesto is one of those people that is always interested in helping the community grow, helping other people have a chance to start their business and so forth. And I stood there and I thought, we're basically in Laredo around 300,000,
Yeah.
officially less, but unofficially probably at least 300. And I thought to myself, but there was a time when San Antonio was 300,000. There was a time when Austin was 300,000. There was a time when, Fort Worth was 300,000. All those cities grew. And I look at Laredo, I look at Laredo here, and I think that's where we're going. There's so much going on here. We're going to keep growing. We're going to be there's going to be more and more opportunities for, as we mentioned before we went on air here, as you mentioned, interest from other states that want to come and invest in not only in the state of Texas, but in our area, right? I mean, because of where we're located, our location with reference to Mexico and Latin America, I mean, we're invaluable, and so I just see so much. There's so much that's happened already, but man, it's not slowing down. It's not going to slow down.
And I think you bring a point that, we're not slowing down, we're growing, and you see that because you have your experience growing up.
Yeah.
You can relate to the area.
Yes.
So that having good representation comes into play in a development for the community.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well,
So-
look, I mean, we're not far from TAMU, Texas A&M International University. Because I remember when we put the shovel in the ground to break ground on that, when that wasn't there.
Right.
I remember that. And look at what we have now. And I know Congressman Quet has talked about this because he was obviously very, very involved and instrumental in getting that going. He and Senator Safarini, he was a rep for this area at the time, state rep. But that is the fastest growing university in the state. We have built that faster than any other university in the state. And I'm proud. I mean, I went in as state rep for Laredo after Henry, but we've been able to get a lot of good things done too in terms of new programs, new degree programs, nursing programs, a lot more buildings.
Right.
That's all stuff we've been able to work on.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like for some reason, Laredo, I think is what do you call it when you're they not undervalued, but they underestimate. They
Yeah.
underestimate the potential that our community and our our level of education, our level of potential. I feel like Laredo has to always prove themselves. And
Well, I think that's part of the job. You, the three of us here, this podcast, so many people in the community. That's part of our job, is to let the rest of the world know who we are and what we are. Recently we were able to get a really significant increase on transportation infrastructure for Laredo. Henry Quad, they passed a big bill up in Washington, a transportation infrastructure bill for the country. And we got a lot of money in Texas, but once it comes to Texas, then guys like me got to go fight for it to bring it down here. and we got the announcement the other day from Texas Department of Transportation.
Okay.
We're going to put 1.6 billion into Laredo. That's a lot of money. That's 5 times more than what we've had before. Now, we've already put a bunch into Laredo. You see it on all our highways and everything that's going on. The overpasses, we're going to do overpasses on all these intersections here. But another 1.6 on top of that, 1.6 billion on top of that. Part of the reason that happened is, for example, when TxDOT is sitting there trying to make decisions on what they call the Unified Transportation Plan for the next 10 years.
Right.
They say, where do we invest? And I told them, I said, do you remember when Governor Abbott directed DPS to stop all the traffic coming across the World Trade Bridge and Columbia Bridge and, like, you know, check every light and every tire and everything else, and it slowed everything down.
So he just made a little funnel, like
Yeah.
a little bottleneck
Exactly.
in the border
For 1 week.
for a week.
And in that 1 week, and I reminded TxDOT, you remember how the estimates were that Texas lost $4.6 billion in that 1 week because we held up the traffic? They said, yeah. I said, well, let me tell you something. That hurt, when they did that hold up, that hurt Laredo. But we didn't lose $4.6 billion in Laredo. The state of Texas lost $4.6 billion. But that showed you how important we are
Yeah.
to the functioning of the economy of the state and this country.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, I didn't want that to happen, but when it did, it allowed us to say, you see, this proves to you what we've been telling you, how much of an impact we have on now people know what the words supply chain mean,
Yeah.
right? Supply chain. It comes through Laredo.
That's beautiful. That was like, take my money.
Yeah.
Here it is.
I mean,
There's no reason why we should be fighting of like where this money is going to go to.
yeah,
Because, like you said, Laredo, and I'm proud to say that. I mean, we're what kind of like, I don't know, we're I think the number one importer from Mexico, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Not even close.
and nobody else gets close. So imagine 1 week, not the Laredo, but
Yeah.
the state in 1 week, because the governor decided to put a little bottleneck in our border. It lost the economy over $4 billion. So why not invest in an area where that is so it's key, and it shows you in 1 week how key
Absolutely.
our area
And it
is.
helped us. So I think, ironically, it helped us for them to go, you know what, they're right. We got to put in a bunch more money in the transportation infrastructure in Laredo because that helps the whole state.
And I think that helps interstate, like in across the U.S. I
Absolutely.
think because of
You can see you can see the plan. TxDOT has them, and there are other entities that have them. They show you, you know, what comes out of here, you know, where it goes to Milwaukee, to New York City, to Houston, to Atlanta. There's every single state, with the exception of Hawaii, every single state in this continental United States gets goods that come through Laredo.
That's awesome.
It's incredible.
And I think I had a little bit of firsthand experience when it came to that, because pues aquí en Laredo pues lo que se ve es lo transportista, los carriers, logistics, all of that. It's part of it's in our blood now. So everybody's usually, most of us has somebody in that type of business, in that industry.
Yeah.
So, I got, me and a friend said, hey, let's buy some trucks together. And we bought a couple of semis and, started, we rented out the dry vans and, got our license plates, everything in order, hired some drivers. And we started getting, through brokers that do the carrier forwarding. So we called the brokers and said, hey, we're ready. Give us some. Well, we had trips everywhere we wanted and back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like but no other state can secure so much. Like, Laredo can get you anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
But no other state can get you back to Texas. Like, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, you're right. It's not just one way. I mean,
Yeah.
what we do in moving commerce from Mexico into the United States, but we also move a lot of U.S. goods to go over to Mexico and Latin America. That comes through here too. It's both ways.
in our ports here with the ships down in in the Gulf.
Yeah.
We also get stuff there.
Absolutely.
But you grew up here in Texas.
Yeah.
You represent the state. You focus on, hey, this is where my district is, and this is the importance of my district.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it creates a sustainable more of a because we try to tie everything back to sustainability.
Yeah.
But you can't have sustainability, a sustainable I think community, if it's not represented right, or if it's not, it's like, hey, look at our potential. This is our important. But hey, we're always the underdog. But I like to be the ones that.
Well, I'm passionate, and I think it does matter. It makes a difference who you put into any of these positions, and I'm very, very passionate about it. I love what I do. I love to get more and more people, more and more colleagues in Austin that understand the dynamic of Laredo and the impact that we have on their area. And that's one of the things we've done successfully, where there's more interest. They go, hey, we didn't realize we're the busiest inland port in America, and most days we're the second busiest port, period. Port of LA is the only one that's busier, and there was a period of time that we were the busiest one, period, right? Period. Even more than Port of Los Angeles about 3 years ago. So when they start seeing that, then you have to educate these guys.
Yeah.
Just like I got to learn about Houston and East Texas and North Texas and Amarillo and El Paso. I mean, I got to learn about the rest of the state, and I'm interested. But I want them to understand who we are, what we offer.
And going back to that it gets me, because at the end of the day, people always say, well, it's because government has to take care of that. But, in government this, or they're always trying to put, government in charge of running the show. But my question is, getting the right people in place, do you think every vote does really matter?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things about growing up in a little town, I can remember, races that would be won by 5 or 6 votes, right?
Okay.
And I remember when I first got elected state rep, I had 7 counties around Webb County, including where I grew up in Duval. And I remember I got in a runoff. The first time I ran, there were 3 of us running, so I got in a runoff. So there was a race for constable in San Diego, right?
Okay.
One of the towns in Duval County. And it was an open seat. The constable was retiring. So these 2 guys ran for constable. They were tied in the primary. They were tied, literally tied. They got the same number of votes. And so what's funny is in Texas law, if you have a tie race, this is your options. You can flip a coin,
Oh, no.
right? And whoever wins the heads or tails, you win. Or you can draw a high card, get a deck of cards, and you draw a high card. Whoever has the ace of spades or what, they win.
Yeah.
Or you can have another election. So these 2 candidates for constable, they're like, no, we'll do another election. So then I'm in the runoff, so they're running again, right, for constable. And the one that won by 2 votes.
Dang. Wow. See, that shows you that.
No, I'll give you another one. This is even more because Duval County is a lot smaller than Webb County. But several years ago, we had a judge. He grew up here in Laredo. I think he grew up here. His sister was here, and family was here. So I think he grew up here. But he moved to San Antonio. He was in the Marines, and then went to law school and went to San Antonio. And he was practicing law up there. And then he got elected county court at law judge, which is the whole county of Bexar County, San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
So 4 years or 8 years later, I forget how many years later, so he's running for re-election. This lady runs against him. He lost by 1 vote, county-wide in Bexar County.
Wow.
And then they did a recount, right? They did a recount because I knew him well.
Yeah.
His brother-in-law was my doctor, and so they did a recount, and she won by 1 vote, county-wide in Bexar County. So when people tell me, does every vote count? I mean, yes.
Because I feel like a lot of people say, hey, why am I going to go register? Which registering now is like, you can do it on the spot. It's so easy to register now. It's like, I didn't even know how easy it was till I went and said, hey, I want to vote. They're like, okay, just show me your license and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But people say, you know what? Why am I going to go vote? It's not like I'm going to make a difference. But hearing these stories, it tells you that, hey, you can make a difference, and if you do your research right on the on the person running, you can make a difference. Um, do you feel like, is it a little side note real
Yeah.
quick, but I feel like I had a a friend tell me he was like, so I was like, oh, so who'd you vote for a position here? He's like, well, outside when I was getting to the booth, I saw this candidate, is they had a real nice design on their posters, and I decided to go with them. They didn't do any research or anything, but that shows you that you le tienes que echar ganas a la campaña también.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Because, I mean, look, what I never forget is this, that the people that actually do go vote, right? They spend about that much time thinking about it because they have so many things to do in their lives. Everybody does. Just day to day, work, kids, your family, your whatever, keeping up with the Dallas Cowboys, whatever.
Wait. Oh, we'll go back to that. We'll go back to the Dallas
Like, it's
Cowboys.
Sunday, they're going to focus on the game, right? So there's a lot to work. There's a lot going on in people's lives, is my point. And so they don't spend a lot of time thinking about por qué me voy a votar, for Laredo College board, or por qué me voy a votar for state rep, por qué me voy a votar. But that one they don't spend much. Then they'll go Richard Raymond, yeah.
Yeah.
Me voy con Richard, ya se,
Yeah,
ya
sí,
se,
sí.
se acabó. Pero, no, but, city council, school board, lieutenant governor, attorney general. I mean, they don't spend very much time thinking about it. Some people do, right? But my guess is that most of them spend just a little bit of time. And so it all matters. I mean, advertising matters, your logo matters, the things that you say, or if you get on a podcast and you talk. I mean, I had a little debate. The Kiwanis Club invited me and my opponent this week. Tuesday we had a little forum there at the Kiwanis Club. They meet at the Danny's on McPherson, the one on the north. And there were probably 25 people there. And so they got to hear us, discuss issues. All those things matter. All of it matters. And so, somebody may vote for you just because you look like their brother. Somebody may vote against you because you look like their brother. I mean, it's all these things. It's the way people are.
And do you feel like being in a campaign, do you feel like you always have to be careful, like you're walking on thin ice everywhere, and being charismatic and showing the people that that you're like in the public eye all the time?
I mean, I really, I don't like having to walk on eggshells. I don't like that. I've tried to be who I am since I was a kid, man. I mean, your parents raise you. You're lucky like I was. I had 4 grandparents. I had a great grandmother. So I was very lucky. I had a lot of love, and they raise you and you are who you are. And, I've always told people that this is who I am. I mean, somebody called me a while ago and they go, yeah, this is Mr. Raymond's office. I said, oh, is this Richard? Oh, is this you? I go, yeah. I give out my cell phone to everybody because if you need me, call me. And I try to, to this man and his wife were on the phone. Hey, look, I'm retired last year. And I was a teacher in Laredo College, and there's some problems with my health insurance. They're charging me too much, and he's telling me the problems he's having. I said, "Pues let me work on that. I said, I need an email from you giving me permission to look into it because if it has to do with your retirement,
Right.
I have to have written permission. So put this in there and give me the details, and I will call them. And then the agency, the employee retirement system, and I'm going to talk about this, and I'll forward your email so they can see I have permission." And I said, and let me work on it. I said, because from what you're explaining to me, yeah, they messed up and we got to fix it. And, pues, I mean, some guys don't do that. Some guys in my position no se prestan así. I get that. I do, because that's who I am. You see me somewhere, I'm going to be the same no matter where I am. And I want to be respectful. I've always tried to be respectful. That's the way my parents raised me. I wish people were respectful.
Yeah.
I told somebody that I wish you didn't see so much fighting in politics. But if you're going to fight, then you need to understand I'm going to fight back.
Okay.
If you're going to punch me, that's the other way I was raised. If you're going to punch me, I'm going to punch you back. I'm not into bullies. I don't like bullies. I never did. I stood up to them. I defended other people when I was a kid or in college or whatever. And if you're going to try to bully me, that means you bully other people.
You're messing with the wrong cowboy.
No, man, you're messing with, that's right, baby. Because I mean, it's not going to be, mira, yo digo esto, mira, se me estás pegando. You're not going to hear me say, ay, párale, ya no me pegues. No. It's
Ahora
like,
se aguanta,
yeah,
¿verdad?
it's like this very famous political consultant who ran Bill Clinton's campaign. So I'm James Carville. He grew up in Louisiana and he was a Marine and he's a tough guy, skinny, tough guy. And he says, the other guy can't talk about you if you got your fist in his mouth.
Hey, that's a good one. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that, baby.
For all the bullies, watch out. Sí, no hay que.
But I do, yeah. I
So
don't want to walk on eggshells, man.
And you're yourself. You feel like, and I think that's better. Being honest with who you are, rather than, chinga, no me acuerdo qué le prometí o qué dije.
Yeah, no, man. That's
Right?
right. That's right. That's exactly right. One of the famous politicians from Texas that I've read a lot about, Sam Rayburn se llamaba. He was from a very small town, North Texas. He was Speaker of the U.S. House. He was a state rep first, Speaker of the Texas House, then went to U.S. House, Speaker of the House longer than anybody. And he said, one of the things he said, if when you're dealing with people, if you just tell the truth, you don't have to stop and think, mira, ¿qué le dije a Rafa? Y qué le dije, acá Álvaro, so I don't like to do that, man.
Yeah.
That's good. Did you wanna? Yeah, I know you had some little thoughts, some questions. Or do you wanna wait? Are you good?
No, just to talk about that, what you said about it's very important just to be you, because I've heard from people they do mention that they don't know who the different politicians may be.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about them, but I've heard from people myself. Just they tell me, I may not like what they've done or this or that, but at least he's always said the truth. Like
Yeah.
he's
Okay.
always been,
I try, man. That's what I try to do.
yeah.
We can't agree on everything. Here's the other thing is that you have to recognize you're not going to agree on everything, but that doesn't mean you have to disagree on everything.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
And it's like, again, I always tell people, like, it's funny, like every session we'll have new members and we'll have freshmen. And I'm a Democrat, and I'm a proud Democrat. I work with everybody. But I'll have some of the Democrats will come to me and they, how do you work so well with the Republicans? I say, well, you got to work with people. You're not going to agree on everything. And I tell them, look at your own life. The people you love the most, your spouse, if you're married, or your kids, or your parents, your brother, your sister. I'm sure you've had some of the biggest disagreements you can ever think of with the people you love the most.
Yeah.
Well, and they always say, yeah, that's okay. But you work together. You come together. You get past those disagreements, and you work together on the things you do agree, and you build on that relationship. And I said, and that's what I do here, whether they're a Democrat or Republican. It's not like I agree with Democrats on everything. All of my Democratic colleagues, no, we disagree.
Yeah.
And Republicans, we disagree and we agree. And so, it's just a part of life that you're going to disagree, but respect the other side. And I remember Bill Clinton talked about this. He says, listen to the other side where they're coming from. Because you may think, oh, man, that's crazy. Whatever. Well, stop and listen to them. And that's what I do. I don't care who they are, man.
But you got to really listen to them,
Yes.
because there's a lot of people that I'm listening to you, but they're not. They're just maybe they might be hearing you, but they're not really
No, they're
listening.
listening. They're
Yeah.
That's right.
But-
They're hearing, but they're not listening.
Exactly. So
Yes.
that I think that's important. Do you think leaving emotions away from the decision making, is that key, or sometimes it's good to be emotional?
We're human beings are emotional. I mean, we have emotions. If you don't have emotions, you're like this. And so there's going to be some level of emotion, but don't let it take over and drive the process. If you feel emotionally like really strong about, I'm going to fight for this because I really feel strongly about, okay, that some of them may not feel as strongly, so Tap down on the emotion and talk to them and explain where you're coming from. And then listen to them why they don't agree, or you try to find, is there some common ground? Is there somewhere we can meet in the middle, right? And I mean, that's life. Politics often is compromise, and life is compromise.
Negotiating. kind of thing,
Absolutely.
yeah. So you become a master in negotiating, and that experience gives me to that question of, is there such thing as a, you know, those, because it got me thinking, you know, there's some positions, really good positions in politics that, you know, sometimes the terms are like, you know, really short. You
Yeah.
don't have enough time to really become an expert in the area and make a
Right.
change. Do you feel like there's a, I mean, there's two things to this. As one is, you don't give me enough time to even become an expert and do anything for my constituents. But then there's other positions that are too long of a term, where like the, you know, Supreme Court justice system is
Right.
appointed lifetime.
Lifetime,
You
yeah.
know, so it's like, is it important to have a balance there?
I think so. And, you know, I mean, like I'm in the State House. I have to run every 2 years. Every 2 years. And Rick Wetted in the U.S. House, he's got to run every 2 years. Well, you know, our founding fathers, when they established this country and they established our system of government, they looked at it this way. The U.S. Senate, you elect somebody into the U.S. Senate for 6 years so that they can stay there. They can be more deliberative. They considered it a more deliberative body. I worked in the U.S. Senate for 4 years, right, before I ran for office. So I got to see how that worked up close, you know, but they also thought the representatives make them 2 years. They call that the people's house, because if the people don't like something, then they can turn it 2 years later. So you're not going to stay there forever.
Oh,
So it's a balance where you have 6 years for the Senate, 2 years, you know, for representative, and then most of the states took that same model at the national level. So in
Gotcha.
Texas, if you're a state senator, it's a 4-year term. If you're a state rep, it's a 2-year term. Same
Got
thing.
it.
So it's the same. It's modeled after what our founding fathers did in Washington. That's what modeled here. And I go, you know what? Those are the rules. That's the lay of the land. That's what we're going to do. And if you want to get reelected, go out. If you still have a passion, if you're still interested. This is very interesting, Alvaro. I mean, the average state rep term is the people serve is like 6 years. Well, that's not very long.
Yeah.
And you know,
Se pasan
I'm way
muy
above
rápido.
average at this point, okay? And but like they'll stay there 1 or 2 terms, and then they just se cansaron, or they don't. You got to have passion for it. It's hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. I like it. This is what I do. I enjoy it. I find it challenging. I find it rewarding. But not everybody feels that way.
Do you feel like do you feel like there's a lot of people that say, hey, if you do what you love and you're passionate about it, you never really worked a day in your life.
Yeah, it's not, I agree with
So-
that. It's that, I mean, practically speaking, of course, you spend a lot of hours.
Right.
I mean, and when we're in session, man, we're on the floor, we're up there midnight, 1 o'clock, 2, 3 in the morning. I've had hearings that went till 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I mean, and you're like, you know, you're trying to just stay with it, you know, drinking Coca-Cola and something to keep
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
stand up and do some exercises or whatever. But so practically speaking, it is work. But you know, the saying is, you know, if you like what you're doing, then it's not work. Well, I like what I'm doing. It's that I see a lot of the people I've seen through the years where they clearly don't like it. You
And
know,
they're just there for the special interest.
Yeah, you
Or
know-
can you tell when somebody is just there for the special interest?
well, I mean, I hope, Alvaro, I hope that, and I say this every session at least one time. I get on the front mic in the House, and I say, look, I believe that every member in the House loves this state and this country, and wants to make it better. I believe that. We're not always going to agree how to do that, but if you start from that basic premise that all of us are there because we want to make things
Okay.
better, then I'm not going to judge you.
Dude, I love that. That's beautiful.
No, I mean, I think,
Cheers.
look, cheers, man.
I think that's awesome.
I think that's the way it is, man. Here, brother.
Because I think you set the tone from the beginning. You setting the tone and saying, hey, everybody, we might not agree to everything, but hey, we're here for Texas and we're here for the country. and this is our calling.
And respect.
Yeah.
Respect that, you're not going to see it the same way, but I've worked on so many things through the years where you figure out a compromise and you come together, and things some people didn't think you could get it done, and you do.
And I think it's good going back to our first podcast when we spoke about tension.
Yeah.
And I gave a little, and I'll say it again,
Yeah.
but it reminds me, Democrat and Republican. I know there's more parties involved, but
Yeah.
those are the two main ones
Yeah.
right now. And no matter what side you're on, I feel like it's good to have tension, and it can be, I think it makes the gears move, and it works as far as maybe in government, as far as in the private sector, in business. If you have people always marching the same way and thinking they're right all the time,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the worst. I think that's gonna lead us to a worse position than, hey, I'd rather maybe no deal is better than a bad deal kind of thing. But I feel like tension is like a rubber band, right? Or government and like somebody, a group of people that are together to make a difference. They'll make a difference if there's tension, but there has to be a balance. It's like a rubber band, right? So a rubber band, I feel like if there's no tension, there's no potential energy in
Right,
it.
right.
There's no potential for it to take flight, right? And
Very
make a
good.
difference.
Very good.
But if there's too much tension, right? Too much tension will it will snap.
Right.
So that's when we're not going to compromise here. We're not going to, find a balance, or we're not going to, that thing that's too much tension, and then again it breaks, and there's no potential energy anymore.
Right. Right.
But if you have two sides pulling just enough and coming to an agreement,
Yeah.
I think that potential energy and the flight that could take, that is there for that rubber band,
Yeah.
is way more. So thank you for sharing that,
Right,
and thank you
It's a good way of putting it.
for having that open-mindedness that, hey, I'm Democrat and I'm not gonna go walk over the aisle and try to come to an agreement.
Well, I'll give you an example. So there was a guy that used to serve, real conservative, and and he was always busting people's chops, trying to kill things more than trying to pass things, and he made a lot of people mad. But I was chairing a different committee than I chair now, Human Services Committee, and we had oversight on all the foster care programs and child protective services and so forth, and so he had written a bill, and it came to my committee, and I looked at it, and I told my committee clerk, I said, ask him if he wants to do a hearing on his bill. He hadn't asked for a hearing. You have to ask for a hearing. So he got back to me, said, well, yeah, if you'll hear it. So we had the hearing, and I saw the way he'd written it, and what he talked about was people that homeschool kids, right, in Texas, homeschoolers, that this would help to make it clear that they could be foster parents if they qualify. When you want to be a foster parent, you have to do background checks and so forth. And so I liked it because I said, we need more people that are willing to be foster parents, because we have a lot of kids in the foster care system that are not placed, or that we have trouble placing, right? So we need more parents. If there are people that are out there, and if they're homeschooling, that's okay. I mean, it's legal, and I know people that homeschool. I've worked with the homeschool community. So I said, we're going to pass this bill. I know people were mad at him, but I said, this bill is not about him, right? It's about what the bill says.
Yes.
And so we passed it out of committee, and then it goes to another committee, and that committee has to allow it to come to the floor. Well, the lady that was chairing that committee, and she's a dear friend, but she was mad at him, right? So she said, I'm not going to bring it because it's his bill. I said, but it's not about him. It's about foster care. I don't care.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like, Chihuahua, so I couldn't convince her. I tried, but then I got one of my other buddies who's a Republican on my committee. Matter of fact, he called me just yesterday. He's a county judge now in Montgomery County, which is the Woodlands. He's a county judge there, and he called me yesterday just to check in with me. He's a good buddy. But anyway, he was on my committee. I said, look, I'm going to task you with this. There are going to be bills come from the Senate. I want you to read them, and I want you to find me one where we can put this on that bill as an amendment. We're going to do it quietly.
wow.
And that's what we did. And so he said, Chairman, I found one. Okay. You offered his amendment. Talk to the senator, make sure they're okay with it. And they did, and we put it in there, and it passed. And
That's beautiful. So, and I'm pretty sure that affected the lives of the
it helps
many
them
foster.
Yes, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. and you know, cheers to that. I'm running low, but I think I'm gonna need a refill. We're gonna do a little refill, and I need it. That story there, you know, brought me to a bunch of questions. One is, how do you pass a bill?
Yeah.
What is a bill, right? And how do you even get it there? Two, and what are people involved? The committees, right? What is committees, and why do they even exist?
Yeah.
So and another few questions I want to go over about, you know, how it was during, you know, when you have to walk up the other aisle, and then they say, hey, well, no, I don't like it coming from him, and it's because of him. I'm not gonna pass it.
Right.
But what changes when it's like it involves, it's not about you, but hey, there's an extreme, you know, circumstance like COVID. So all those things I wanna bring back. But everybody at home, I want to invite you. I know you guys want a refill. I need a refill. So sírvanse un refill, ya sea de cafecito, lo que estén tomando ahí en la casita, o donde quiera que estén. Ya sea de mañana, un licuadito de plátano o lo que sea. Ahí, porfa, acompáñenos con. Ahorita regresamos aquí en What the Peg. Again, sustainability speaks louder. So we'll be right back.
And I had one of my friends, this is funny, and I like campaigning, right? So I enjoy it. And so, but one of my friends, he's a doctor, and I won't, that's all I'll say, but he's in, he had another local office. And I think he's interested in maybe getting in the legislature sometime. And but he's a very good supporter. And he says, so how long do you think you want to be state rep? You know, you want to work on that? I go, pues I don't know. How long do you want to be a doctor?
Exactly, right? He's like, same question, right?
And he looks at me and goes, okay, touche.
Right?
I said, I mean, I
of you
want
wanna
to do
be
it
a
as long as I like it, you know, because if I'm not willing to work as hard as I work,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd
you-
rather have somebody else do it.
And I mean, that's good, because if you feel like you burned out, and that's it. You're not gonna lie to yourself and the people around you just to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
I mean, I'll tell you, just to get a little personal, toughest time for me, you know, December of 19, this is the way it went. So the filing for 2020 was from early November to like December the 9th, 2019.
Do you have like about a month?
Yeah, you have a month to file. So for 2020, the filing was from like November 9th to December 9th, right? So December 9th comes, nobody filed against me, not at all. No Democrat, no Republican. I didn't have anybody run against me. December 13th, I get a call in the morning and asking me to go over to my son's apartment, and my son passed. My son passed away, my firstborn.
Sorry,
And man, that was so hard. And in those moments, I didn't know, you know, I didn't want to live to the next day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And but you know, I don't know what would have happened, to be honest with you, had I had an opponent. But the good Lord didn't give me one that year. He said, I'm not going to give you an opponent. So I got reelected on December 9th, basically, and then 4 days later, really 3 days later, my son passed away. You know, 3 months after that, we're in the pandemic. And I worked so hard during the pandemic, man. I worked so hard because all I could keep thinking was, I knew I had studied these kinds of things. I knew that someday we were going to have something like COVID, because I had experienced that early in my career, where we thought we had the Ebola virus in Alice, which is my district.
Right.
So that's when I really studied these viruses and I understood what could happen. So I always had that in my mind. So now we hit COVID, and all I cared about was, I want to do everything I can so people don't die.
Yeah.
I don't want other families to feel what I just felt and what I'm feeling right now with the loss of my son. I didn't want that. And so I'm working with my guys at the state level, the Commissioner of Health, with the chief of the Division of Emergency Management, guys that I was very close to already, very close relationship with them, and working here with, you know, the city manager, and working with the mayor, and working with the health department, and working with FEMA, and with everybody, just constant, because my interest was, I wanted Laredo, I knew people would die, and I wanted to bring that as low as possible so that fewer people would die. So, you know, I was still, of course, hurting. I still hurt today, having lost my son. But I was, you know, man, I was so engaged in that, and I know we saved people. I know we ended up having the highest vaccination rate in the state, and I had to work hard and fought hard to get the vaccines down here, because we were having to we were having to, believe me, fight for all that, and work constantly with the hospitals to make sure that we didn't exceed capacity, or if we did, that we were, you know, we set up to the state, we set up at a hotel so that you could take patients over there that were not, that didn't need to be in the emergency room, or didn't need to be in the critical care, you know. And so, I mean, constantly staying on top of it. It was a balance, but it was constant, man, constant for months and really years, as it turned out. But even then, that was my toughest period of my life in terms of my work. But this popped up, and I just jumped into it, man, hard.
You laser focused.
Yeah.
And well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Gracias por la confianza de poder, pues, decirnos, share a little bit about, you know, your personal experience, and you know, we're really sorry about that. And I know one thing that, you know, because I have a daughter of my own, it's hard not to get emotional, but
No, man, there's nothing harder, and I just, you know, I had friends who lost their child, and my heart went out to them, but I had no idea, you know, and my faith is very strong, and my son's faith was very, very strong, but, you know, it goes back to what we talked about, human emotion. I mean, there are some people that they're okay, or they can move on, or whatever. Well, you have to move on, but I mean, I think about my son every day, and many times during the day, and when I pray at night, I talk to my son, and, you know, I ask God to, you know, be nice to him, and, you know, I ask Jesus to walk with him and put his arm around him, you know.
yeah. And you know, and thank you for not letting that, you know, instead of, you know, being a kind of something that held you back, it was something that drove you, and saying, hey, Laredo, I'm gonna fight for you guys, so you guys don't have to go through what I just went through.
Absolutely. That was, Alvaro, that was my focus. It was very simple for me. I don't want people to go through what I just went through. And we still lost several people in Laredo, but I know we saved a lot of lives, you know.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that. And I was just at one of your events, and thank you for inviting us.
Yes, sir.
It was beautiful to learn a little bit about how you still, you know, communicate, and you have that communication with your son, and you have that passion for music.
Yes.
And you shared that talent for, you have talented kids with both your daughter and your son.
Yes.
You know, came together with you, and you started, you know, singing some of the songs in the playlist.
That's right.
That was a beautiful experience. And
well, it was pretty neat, you know. Aaron, my son Aaron, and his name was very unique, Aren, because I took the first letter of my 4 grandparents' names. So A is Adolfo, R is Rebecca. They were the ones from Laredo. E is Eulalia, my grandmother on my mother's side, and N was Niceforo, my grandfather on my mother's side. So Aren. It was a unique spelling, right? But he loved music, loved poetry, wrote a lot of poetry, was a wonderful writer, but he loved music, all kinds of music. And so he had put playlists on my phone and on Spotify as well. And so I had 2 playlists, but then several months after he died, because I didn't realize how to look for it in the Spotify, I found 7 more playlists, and it was like a godsend, you know, because I play a song, and, you know, I think, I wonder what you were thinking when you saved this one, you know, I wonder what you were thinking. I knew on some of them what he was thinking, because he loved, his favorites were Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, and I realized that they were his favorites because they were poets. They're really poets.
Yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel were poets, right? And obviously Bob Dylan, got a Nobel Prize recently, right? Nobel Prize for his music, for his poetry. So, but anyway, I got very lucky, and so yeah, my other son Ryan and my daughter Eva, they're very talented kids, and we decided to play a couple of the songs. It was hard.
Son una
Dude,
familia de artistas. güey.
Dude, it was hard, man. I mean, it was hard because it was emotional for me, and just a couple of songs. But
Was that the first time you kind of
yeah,
did that kind of?
yeah, I've gotten up before. Like I get up and I do rock. I told you
like rock and roll.
in the Lost interview.
Far away.
I do rock and roll, and mariachis. Those are the two things I like to sing. And so I've gotten up a lot of rock and roll, but I haven't since Aaron died. I still haven't. Maybe I will at some point, but I haven't been able to get myself to get up there and do that.
Yeah.
But so these were much more calmada songs, which are harder to sing, to be honest with you. Because when you're doing rock and roll, they're,
You get excited.
you shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
Bueno, man.
Dun, 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 all that's going on. But when you're singing Blue Bayou, it's
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's more challenging.
Yeah. No, I loved it. Hearing you and your family up there, it was exciting, and thank you for sharing that at that event. That was beautiful, and so you're an Elvis fan? Because I could
Yes,
tell,
man.
I could be honest, if when you guys are at home listening to this, or on iTunes or Spotify or iHeart, they I feel like I can hear a little bit of Elvis in the back, and a little Elvis twang.
Let me tell you something, man.
There you go.
I love Elvis, man. Yeah, man. I grew up listening to all kinds of musics. I mean, first was country, because my grandparents were in Freer, and all they had in Freer was country dances. So I started going with my parents and my grandparents when I was 7 years old. So I learned country very young. I love country. And then when I got to junior high in Benavides, then we started having dances, and those were all Tejano. Los clásicos, Roberto Pulido, Los Clásicos,
Oh,
Mas,
yeah.
all these guys. And I started going to dances when I was in junior high. I loved dancing, man. I loved the Tejano music. I really loved, then on what we would, not at the dances, but there would be pachangas, what we call political pachangas. They would do them in the street.
No pachangos, pachangas.
Pachangas, I say pachangas. And they would have a conjunto. And I
Okay.
love conjuntos, man, with accordion and a couple of other instruments.
Hombre,
Oh, man, I love that. Was that, Tony La Rosa.
ya se me antojó una bandita aquí. Tráete algo.
But then let me tell you, so coming to Laredo is what really exposed me to mariachis, right? And so, man, I love mariachi music.
And I didn't get to tell you that last
Yeah.
time. When people ask me what's my favorite type of music, it's mariachi. I like it because I grew up with it, and my parents are from Mexico, and we visit family and all the time, and I was part of a mariachi at St. Patrick's Church. It was fun.
Man, well, and of course, Jose Alfredo Jimenez,
Jose Alfredo Jimenez,
I mean,
he's an icon, right?
for me, man, he, Chihuahua, I love his songs because you talk about passion and you talk about just everyday life, and the guy could express that in his songs, and I just love it. So it's funny, but some of my friends who've been around me, and heard me sing, of course, they know I love Elvis, right? I do. We should all love Elvis.
Yeah, we all love Elvis. If
but-
you haven't seen the movie, go watch it.
Oh man, I mean the movie's great. You're looking for trouble? Dun, 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 dun. You've been come to the right place. Dun, 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 dun. You're looking for trouble? Look right in my face. And
Come on,
but
Raul, yeah.
but people that are friends who have heard me, they're like, when I sing mariachi stuff, when I sing Jose Alfredo, that's the most passion. It's like I feel, however it sounds, I feel like that's what I sound the best. And I don't know if it's because that is more passion. It requires passion. It's real. It's right here.
It requires a couple shots of tequila too.
You know what? I don't really drink much. I really don't. I didn't drink anything till I was almost 30, and I just drink very little. But, no, hombre, can you imagine if I drank? No,
No.
qué bárbaro.
Estuviéramos, fuéramos famosos ahorita. Oye,
But I do, man. I mean, Chihuahua, ya saben las
that's
canciones.
beautiful because I went not too long ago, and I mentioned it last time. I went to Mexico City,
Yeah.
and there's this place called Garibaldi, I think, and it's kind of in the, I imagine, kind of nearby the center of Mexico City. So you drive there, and there's like to me, I don't know, it was late after a few drinks, and it felt like there was hundreds of mariachis there. And there's this one place, it's called in Altinampla, something like that. It's like a cantina slash, well, it's a cantina. It's huge, and they have food there too. But that place is like historic, and also, I think Jose Alfredo Jimenez was, when he knew he was gonna pass,
Yes.
he called his friend, I think it was Chelita or something like that, and she was also a singer, and they went to what?
Chela Vargas.
Chela la boca. Nah, no. So he went to El Antinam. I think I'm saying it right. Hope no me regañen allá en la casa. Pero llegó y dice que se pasó, no sé si fueron 3 días y 4 noches o algo así, y pues cantando mariachi, y hasta que pues ya sabía que se iba a morir, y lo acompañó su amiga y estuvieron ahí pues hinchando el mariachi. And I think, I don't know, man, that's beautiful because I think the like you say, the lyrics, they're
Well, let me
poets.
tell you,
Yeah.
it wasn't until probably, man, I don't know, 6 years ago or something, and I just tripped over it. I just hadn't seen it. I haven't heard all of his songs. I've heard a lot of them, but the last song he wrote, because he knew he was dying, Gracias,
Gracias.
and so I'm gonna do a little bit of it. Can
A
I do a
ver,
little bit?
vamos a ver.
Well, the beginning,
Aquí la
right?
guitarra.
¿Cómo puedo pagar que me quieran a mí por todas mis canciones? Ya me puse a pensar y no alcanzo a cubrir tan lindas intenciones.
Échate un grito, Rafa. No, hombre, chulada. No. Bravo.
So that was his last, and he goes, si tuviera con qué, compraría para mí otros 2 corazones para hacerlos vibrar. Anyway,
Oh,
it's you need to listen if you haven't heard
The
Gracias.
lyrics.
I mean, he's
And
laying it out.
So he wrote that knowing he was gonna pass.
That was his
song?
last song. He's saying, how can I thank you for loving me and my songs?
Yeah.
But then he said, los aplausos me llevo conmigo hasta
Yeah.
hasta la muerte.
And then you have, of course, he just passed not too long ago.
Vicente.
Vicente.
So Vicente, for me, Fernandez, was a better vocalist, better singer, better voice, right? Because he was, I mean, he was
strong.
the best.
There's nothing out there. Yeah.
He was the best, but he didn't write songs like Jose Alfredo.
Yeah.
So Jose Alfredo, who I love, of course, I love the way he sang, but Vicente, I think you can argue, had a better voice.
Right.
But this guy wrote 1,000 songs.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Okay, so it's because he was an artist, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah, he was an artist, and he was a poet,
he was a poet, man. Yes.
and this guy was a really talented singer.
Yes.
So
I mean, it's funny. The song that had made Vicente Fernandez the most famous was El Rey. Well, who wrote it?
José Alfredo.
Alfredo wrote it.
No, pues saludcita, donde quiera que nos estén viendo, salud y saludos a los compadres Vicente y al José Alfredo.
Así es. Mm-hmm. Man, so anyway, but that's I love it, man. Music.
Yeah,
And my son loved it, and he left me all this music. It covers so many different genres, if you will.
And that's
it's
beautiful
just wonderful,
because
man.
not everybody has that where they can go back and actually, I feel like I can imagine, you're listening to these, but like you can, I think you can relate to him, or he can be
Yes.
like I feel like you can imagine he's there.
And there's some songs that are in there that I go, I know you put this in there because you heard it with me.
Yeah.
Because there'll be a song I
Oh.
go, I know you put this because you heard it with me.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
Can't Help Falling in Love. I mean, like Elvis. he put that in there. He only has a couple of Elvis songs, but that's one of them. And I almost sang it. We practiced it, but it didn't meet my requirements, where I like, they sounded good, the kids sounded good, but I go, no, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel, but I knew he heard Elvis, and my kids, when they were little, would be going down the road, and, they'd all be singing with me. Well, it's a 1 for the month, 2 for the show, a 3 to get ready now, go. And so they're all go, the other 3 kids in their seats going, blue, blue, blue suede shoes.
No. Beautiful, dude. That's awesome. Have you ever sang there at the Capitol?
Yes, what I used to do is I had a little band, and so after hours would be done, then we'd practice in my office, right? And my office is on the first floor, and so you could hear us down the hall, and the DPS troopers loved it because they could hear it.
Yeah.
But I would ask my neighbors, whoever was on that side of me, the other office, you don't mind if we
Was
practice?
it Trump and
Yeah.
and Pelosi?
And I would ask the other reps, they go, no, man, yeah, we love when you play.
Go for it.
So we would play in there, right, to practice stuff, right? And but other than that, well, I sang. You know where I sang? Well, we had the Martin mariachis one time. We've had them before, but one time that we had them there in the rotunda, in the Capitol rotunda on the first floor, right? And I just didn't realize the acoustics were so wonderful.
In there.
And if I'm gonna sing with mariachis, I gotta have a microphone. I'm not like those guys that are the mariachis that are, man, their voice
Yeah, they
is so
go on.
powerful. They don't need a microphone.
Yeah.
That's not me. I gotta have a microphone. But anyway, they had set up a couple of microphones, so I went there to introduce them. Hey, can we have the Martin mariachi band? And I sang with them,
Oh,
and
nice.
it sounded pretty good.
There you go.
I think it sounded good. I had
Okay, yo
people.
me acuerdo.
We had people on, because the second floor it's like this, and then the third floor. So you
Yeah.
had people up there looking down on us, and we're singing.
Dang, that's awesome. We gotta look that up.
Yeah, man.
And I know there in Austin, there's a lot of things going on now.
Yeah.
I know, Tesla just moved there.
Yeah,
You said you were there at the
I
inauguration?
went to the inauguration,
Was
and
that's different from the barbecue that they had, right? They had a huge barbecue supposedly, or was it part of that? I don't know.
well, what I went to, they said this was the opening, and so there weren't that many people. I mean, I'd say that many. There's probably 1,000 people. I
Okay.
mean, for a place like that, that's nothing because it's a gigantic place, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they had little food trucks, and there was a Taco Palenque food truck.
Oh,
I
yeah?
was very happy about that. I'm like, hey, man, because there were only like 5 or 6 food trucks. They weren't like, they didn't invite everybody. But taco, and I don't know how they got there. I forgot to ask Don Pancho, but they had a Taco Palenque truck there. But Musk was there.
Oh, did
yeah.
you get to meet the Musk?
I didn't meet him. No, he came out and gave a speech, wearing a black cowboy hat and sunglasses. This is like at 9 o'clock at night. I don't know why he's wearing sunglasses, but black T-shirt, black pants, black boots, black hat, and black sunglasses.
Ayer andado bien mosky. No, I know he's doing. We do a lot of business with Tesla. We install. We're CIs or certified installers for Tesla. So
Are they? So I knew that they'd made solar panels, right? So let me ask you, because this is your business. So
yeah.
do we know by now, is it sort of commonly established that these certain panels are the best ones in the industry, or do we just have a lot that are good, and one of them offers this, they go 25 years, one of them offers that I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know the difference.
Well, it's like politics.
Yeah.
You can buy certain. Well, you're not supposed to say buy, right? But
Yeah.
you can get people to rate you.
Yeah.
Certain certifications, like UL listed.
Yeah.
Certain warranties that you can offer, but you usually just buy them, and then they tell you you're warranted and you're certified, but who knows, right? But I'll give them benefit. I don't want to sound like
Yeah.
crazy, right? But if you're looking at it as a consumer, yeah, there's tiers, what we call it.
Okay.
So there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. But tier 1 is the top panels.
And but is that, so what makes it tier 1? The longevity, or?
So the warranties, right?
Yeah.
So that these warranties and the backing of that, manufacturer, that they can, I mean, de nada me sirve tener garantía de 100 años
Yeah.
si you're probably not going to be here in a couple
Yeah.
of years.
Yeah.
But that you have that history and you've been manufacturing for a while, and you have that backing. So that backing gives you that certain tier.
Okay.
And then obviously the technology that you're putting on these panels,
Yeah.
they just really the technology that goes into it. What makes the magic happen for solar panels is the inverter. That's kind of the heart of the solar. Is the inverter, or how far you can, how much you can produce out of it. Because not to get too technical, but that's the way it is right now. I know there's a lot of ways, applications. There's direct current applications, and you don't need an inverter, but you need a charge controller to control how much you're putting into the loads. But there is, the panels themselves. A lot of people say, "Hey, a panel's a panel." No matter if it's whatever it may be, but whatever brand. But it is what the cool thing now. A lot of things are becoming more efficient, meaning, a panel that was 100 watts used to be like this huge, gigantic thing to put on your roof, or it would take up a lot of space. Now it's like, for that same space, you can have two panels that are, 300, 400 watt. So that's the efficiency.
Okay.
And then the degradation.
Yeah.
So they degrade after a certain amount of time. So, year one, to degrade X amount. So you can, the history behind it, how much they degrade per year. So after the 20 years, how much are they really going to be producing?
Right.
So that's, you're rated for. So all of that matters, and that's what becomes. But like I said, those specifications is like, hey, you got to trust the manufacturer.
Right.
But
Well, so Tesla, how long have they been in it? Do you know?
well, Tesla's, I know they do cars, they do
but reference to
solar.
Solar, yeah.
So they just started manufacturing their own panels. A lot of people don't know. They white label or another manufacturer, like they third party,
Okay.
and they say, hey, X manufacturer, that's the one that's gonna, fulfill my orders for my panels. So if you want to order a system from Tesla and go, they call it Tesla Direct. But really, they'll call people like me and say, hey, we've got a system down in Laredo that wants to install. Here you go. But they send panels from another manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
But they're trusted by they went through the whole, process to get, obviously Tesla trusts them for a reason. But now they started manufacturing their own, and they're doing that out of Austin, I believe. What they do manufacture from the start, from maybe 3 years ago, is the Tesla tiles. So it looks like shingle, but it's really glass and solar, and it produces energy. So everything's
So how big are they?
the Tesla tiles.
Yeah.
They're pretty big.
We have some, but they're like this big.
Okay.
They're pretty big, and you put them on the roofs. The challenging part is that you can't cut those like shingle.
Yeah.
So you have to the designing comes.
To play.
Yeah, you gotta. But the interesting thing, what they're good at is the power banks, the batteries.
Mm-hmm.
So the batteries also protect people from outages.
Right.
So essential loads like
It's a key.
refrigerator.
That's going to be a key part going forward. Is going to be batteries.
Yeah,
capacity.
and that was something that I was going to ask, because I know you're part of several committees.
Yeah.
So, you're in the the state representatives, right? And the representatives sit on committees.
Right.
And these committees, not all the representatives can represent those committees.
Right.
Or,
So each committee has, they may have 9 members. They may have 15 members. There's one big one, which is the Appropriations Committee that deals with the budget. That's
Okay.
got 27. I think we're at 27 right now. It's been up to 29. So, but most committees are going to be like 9 or 11, right? And so I'm on, and so you're going to be on 2 committees, right?
two.
But I tell people, doesn't matter what committee you're on, they're all important. But of course, So like I'm on state affairs. Well, that's a really important committee,
Okay.
right? And there are 15 members on there. But we deal with all the issues. We have oversight of ERCOT. We have oversight of the PUC. We have oversight on all telecommunications issues. So, and a lot of other stuff, but those are big ones, right?
I mean, that's huge. The
Yeah.
Public Utilities Commission is what, regulates everything that comes as far as our utilities,
Right.
which include energy, right, or how you get your light,
Yes.
and how that's regulated, and also water.
Yeah.
I imagine gas. Gas is also part of that. Um, how was it? I know during the freeze,
Yeah.
how was did that committee come together and say,
Well, it was we were the key committee because we have oversight of the grid, basically the grid. And so, yeah, that's why I'm telling you, I know that, batteries are going to be an important part of the future, right? Certainly solar, renewables, sustainability, to your point, renewables are very, very important. What we also had to look at was a big part of the failure on the freeze, the Winter Storm Uri freeze, was that the gas movement of the gas was not weatherized. Utility plants weren't weatherized sufficiently, so the gas couldn't move in, right?
It froze,
It
basically.
froze, and so you couldn't get them into the plants that needed gas.
it's not that the natural resources weren't there, it's just that we needed the weatherization on these
Right.
pipes to be able to
Well,
run.
and so the thing is, I mean, like other states had weatherization, right?
Because they're used to
because
it.
they're more used to it. They're most used to having those cold. We hadn't had something like that. I don't know when. Certainly not in my lifetime, but whether it's 100 years, 200 years, whatever it was, we hadn't had that kind of a freeze where the whole state. I mean, the whole state was below freeze. Was certainly below freezing, and some places below, I think, below zero, and for several days. We'd never experienced that anybody could know or remember. And so, they hadn't done what they were supposed to do. I mean, we'd passed legislation, requiring weatherization, but, we can pass the legislation, but then the agencies or the governor or others that have oversight, they have to,
commissions.
they have to help us, the
Police it.
commissions, they have to help us implement those. And so there was a lot of weatherization that should have been done, because we had a big freeze in 2011, not as bad as this one. It was bad enough, and that's when we first passed legislation. But they hadn't done all the weather. So now we got out on them, of course, and there's a lot more of that going on.
So how does that work? Because I'm imagining my business. You would it's in in the private sector, but then you have government telling you have to, every time you're going to put a pipeline, if you're going to be in the business, it has to have this condition in it. Is that basically what it is?
Yeah, because
Like the code?
yeah,
you know,
if you're gonna be part of the grid, basically.
Okay.
And we're managing it's a private sector, but the state is managing the grid, or the state is, I mean,
ERCOT, yeah,
is
yeah.
set up by the state, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to be part of that system, then we're saying, then you have to be able to prepare for extreme circumstances. One can be freeze, and the other one can be, of course, when it gets really hot in
Yeah.
Texas.
So
So
extreme weather.
yeah, extreme, absolutely. And again, other states in the north of us, they don't have problems because, well, number one, they're tied into the national grid, and we're not, right? We have just a grid here in Texas,
Right.
for the most part, right? And so, the other states that are tied into the national grid, they can pull in energy from some other state or some other part of the grid. But in Texas, it's just Texas.
Yeah.
And so we're having to say, hey, if you're going to be part of this, we're going to let you make your money. I mean,
Yeah.
for your investment
You
and
can
all.
play the game, but you gotta.
Well, you
you
got to
know, you
make
gotta-
sure. You got to
you
make
listen to
sure
the
that-
refs.
You got to make sure you deliver not only in the good times but in the tough times.
Yeah.
I mean, 700 people froze to death,
I had no idea that.
and that's just terrible, man. I mean, here we were in the year 2021 in the state of Texas.
People freezing.
700. They said 700, so they're saying 700. I'm sure it was more than that.
That's just crazy to think.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, I went into survivor mode and I started, putting all these generators and
Yeah.
hooking up solar panels and
Yeah, yeah.
having backup, But I know if que no me vieran mis abuelitos porque mijo, aquí está la leña, ponte bien. ¿Qué estás haciendo? ¿Cómo que, right?
Yeah.
La leña.
You know, it's funny. My mother grew up out in the country, right, out in Stark County, but in El Rancho, you know. And I didn't realize till a few years ago. She told me they didn't have electricity till she was 9 years old. You
No
imagine?
electricity.
Wow.
You imagine, man?
So I mean, she had no problem, you know.
But that's what they knew.
And
That's what they knew. So, you know.
now like we said last time, I mean, ¿quién iba a pensar que el nieto de una persona, de una señora que no tuvo electricidad hasta los 9, su nieto iba a ser parte de un comité que se encarga
No,
de regular?
su hijo,
Su hijo, perdón. Ah, so this is your mom.
my mom.
So your mom, that's
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
more beautiful that, you know, it comes full circle. It's like my mom didn't have, you know, energy or electricity until she was 9, and now her son is part of a committee that helps, you know, serve, you know, and regulate the industry of getting power to your home.
All over the state.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's awesome, man.
Pretty,
Cheers.
pretty, pretty neat.
Right, cheers to that.
Good way of putting it, brother.
Yeah. ¿Qué onda, Rafita? ¿Te quedaste? Ya. ¿Estás bien?
Sí.
No es bien seco, ¿no? Luis, es que pistean muy rápido ustedes, güey, espérame.
No me dejó Rafa.
¿Eh? What's it called? So I think so the future of Texas, I think when there's bad times, or how does that saying go? And I mentioned it last time. It's like by generation, and it applies a lot of different ways where the bad times, you know, make, you know, strong men, and then the good times bring, you know, and there's generations where they get used to. I think we were comfortable.
Yeah.
We were just comfortable, and we didn't know how to, you know, kind of, hey, innovate and adapt to this whole weather thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think these hard times we're gonna bring, you know,
More
think
innovation, no doubt about it. I think you're right. I mean, you know, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Mhm.
And so now we are looking at, we're not going to have fossil fuels forever, right? And so, you know, solar is very important, wind is important. I mean, and candidly conservation, you know, for people to do the little things, man. I mean, I started doing this very young, you know, where turn off the lights when you walk out of a room. A lot of people don't even think about that, right? Or when you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water while you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water, right? And then when you're ready to rinse, get a glass and you get some water,
And
whatever.
sometimes I'm tempted when it's really cold.
Yeah.
You turn on the hot water, you let the hot water come out, and que se haga el vapor, y luego ya, ahora sí ya me meto. Pero, pues, I think that's a lot of water that's
So
wasted.
we have to, let me tell you, so my grandparents in San Isidro, where my mother grew up, you know, my grandfather worked in a rancho, man, you know, my grandfather Nicéforo. He worked till he was 88. The only reason he stopped when he was 88 because he lost his eyesight. He lived to be 94. When I'm growing up, here he is in his 70s con la posera y estamos tumbando.
Y el pico ahí.
Yeah, man, he's tumbando monte y todo, you know. And, you know, so in the summers, that's when I'd go stay out there, and my brother and we'd be working. So my grandparents had like a little shed about the size of, maybe twice the size of this table, right? Cement on the floor. And you go in there and had a little drain. And so you take a bucket of water, one bucket of water, and a can, like a peach from Peaches.
Yeah.
My grandparents always got peaches, so Peaches. And you'd get that, because it's hot, so for starters, right? It's hot outside.
Refrescado.
So ya después de trabajando en el rancho todo el día, vienes y te quieres bañar, you know. Vas con una cubeta and with a tin can and a bar of soap and a little shampoo. And believe it or not, because I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, man, one bucket of water. That's all you need, man.
Yeah.
One bucket of water, I promise you can take a bath. Believe it or not, you get a can, get your hair a little wet, put some shampoo in, 2 cans, lather up, can, te sobra.
Yo-
But people are so used to it today, man. It's very different.
I know. I mean, today it's like, probably you can fill up a pool with it, but Rafita no, Rafita con tres wipes se va a volar. ¿Qué dice? El baño vaquero. So, because here in Laredo, talking about water, how did, you know, how, because there's two sides to it. Like recently, we had Steve Lamantia come
Yeah.
by, and he was talking about the brewery and the the water resources and all of that's needed. But I'm wondering, and he mentioned there's the same amount of water in Earth on our
On Earth.
planet, on Earth with so that's what it's like. Okay, how can there be the same amount of water? That's
Well, the argument and the theory, of course, is that, are within our atmosphere, right? Water evaporates, goes up, comes back down as rain. And so that's what he's talking about, right? That it's, you know, theoretically, and I say theoretically, but he's probably right. It's all, I remember my uncle talking to me about that. He was a teacher. But it's all here. It's all
Hasn't gone
within
anywhere.
our atmosphere. I mean, the rocket ships or the satellites that go beyond our atmosphere, they're not taking water with them, Maybe a little
Okay.
bit, but not very much, the space station or whatever. But yeah, that's the argument, that it's all here, right? It's all
Yeah,
here.
that's what and so what happened to Laredo not so long ago? Is it what was like I'm not trying to find
Yeah.
who to blame, but how did we get to a position where families were left without water?
Well, and with reference to what's happened here, unfortunately, I think, is that the infrastructure, I mean, you had a lot of the pipes, to be very basic, a lot of the pipes that were just too old. And so they started, if a water main busts, the
Okay.
water's not going to keep flowing and get to the homes, right? It was that simple. And I remember, I think one of the big things that we had here, a big problem in February, was that, like, you shut off somewhere over here, and then when you're going to open it up, you have to do it gradually. And one of the engineers told me that he thought what had happened is they opened it up too quickly, and that the pressure of that going through these older
Built
pipes
up.
busted,
Yeah.
and busted in a meaningful way. And so,
In
yeah.
these pipes, are they built by, I mean, I'm imagining private, contractors,
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
They're bidded out
Yeah, yeah,
and they're built to.
yeah.
Okay.
But they don't last forever.
Okay.
I mean, nothing does. I mean, they have to replace them. And so, they the city's got to focus on that some more in replacing the infrastructure. And that's true for a lot of cities around the country, by the way. It's not just here, but obviously we're focused on here. So they got to make sure that they make that a real priority. Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause, I don't know. I mean, I was affected. I know I didn't have water for a few days.
Yeah, man. That's,
Y pues yo me baño cada lunes, güey. Y pues tocó que no había agua el lunes. No se crea, así me baño cada otro día. Nada. ¿Qué onda, Rafita? ¿Estás muy serio?
No, aquí estoy disfrutándolos aquí,
¿Sí?
como la platillita.
¿Y qué onda? ¿Qué nos cuentas? ¿Algo que quieras que aprender del... Because you're part of the committee that also... Is TechStop a different animal? Like a different, like government agency? Or...
well, yeah, it's a government, it's a state agency, Texas
Okay.
Department of Transportation, but we have oversight. The legislature has oversight, and so, like, we have a committee. It's called the Transportation Committee. Well, they're the ones that deal with all the
Okay.
transportation bills. They go to there. So back to you were asking about this. You have the Transportation Committee that deals with that. You have Human Services, well, that deals with the Health and Human Services Commission,
Yeah.
Medicaid program. I chaired that for 8 years. Now I chair the Defense and Veterans Affairs Committee. So the committee I chair, we have oversight of the National Guard, the State Guard, the Texas Division of Emergency Management, any issues that affect veterans, the Veterans Commission, the Veterans Land Board. So we're, all these different committees do different things.
And they oversee
The
kind of
bills, the
what-
bills and the agencies. Yeah, when we're in session, if a bill has to do with transportation, well, it's going to go to the Transportation Committee. It has to do with Health and Human Services, it's going to go to Human Services. It has to do with veterans, it's going to come to mind. It has to do with the National Guard, it's going to come to mind. And then when we're not in session, well, even when we are in session, then every state agency has one of the committees that has oversight of that agency, you know?
And so, because my reason behind, saludos a todos los de TextDot, tengo muchos amigos and
Yeah,
engineers there,
yeah.
that as far as I know, they don't do. I'm just kidding. They one of my friends that works there was talking about that TextDot just got a bunch of funding for EV chargers. So all along I-35 and there's some other corridors
Yes.
that they're putting EV chargers on there. That's
And
part of what committee there? Is that because
that would go
has
through
to do
well, it would go
with
through transportation, but
energy too, or no?
well, because it's placed in TxDOT, they're probably going to keep it in that committee. But you have you have an Energy Resources Committee, and so they might go in there. Some of it might come to us because of batteries. It might come to the State Affairs Committee, But mainly on that, it was appropriations. So it was an appropriation that was put into their budget, and that's through the Appropriations Committee.
And how do you find out about the funding or like the funding that is available for people like, hey, there's this incentive or there's this
It's one of those things, man, where if you asked, and we can help look for it, but we try to get the agencies to put the word out, right? To advertise it or let different entities out there or the cities,
Stakeholders.
hey cities, let people in Laredo know if you got this, you got that. So it's just the way it works. Is you kind of hope that people that are in the industry, whatever that may happen to be, that they're following it. And hey, look, they've got this new. Many times, the idea is going to come from the private sector. Hey, we think you should invest more in this kind of infrastructure. I'm going to push next session for us to put more money in there, for charging stations.
Yeah.
I know we need it. We want to take off in Texas. We're going to have more charging stations.
No, there is, and we've been excited to see the push for it. So thank everybody out there in Austin and yourself that's pushing for this change and more innovation for electrical vehicles.
Yeah.
Because you can't go in much places unless you're charged
Yeah,
up.
and I mean, I've seen the map of it, and particularly a city like Laredo, Waco's. I mean, anything outside of Houston and Dallas, and even in Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth, they may have more than we do, but they have so many more people than we do,
Yeah.
And so it's that charging infrastructure really needs to be worked on.
And right now you mentioned that the public sector usually is the ones that push for funding or a certain incentives or push for different legislator to pass
Right.
legislator laws to pass. So what's the difference? Do you think there's a thin line or is there a huge difference between a lot of people say it has to do with like representing your constituents or representing special interests? What's the difference?
It's all right. So if I'm pushing for something, if I got teachers coming to me and, asking, saying, hey, look, how hard we work, the responsibilities we have. We don't get paid nearly as much as lawyers or doctors. But if it weren't for us, there wouldn't be any lawyers or doctors, right? And so we haven't had a cost of living increase, whatever. We'd like pay raises. Okay, so if I push for that, am I supporting a special interest?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a gray area.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance. You try to do the best you can. You really do.
See the benefits.
I do. Yeah, I try, man. I try really hard, and I hope most members do. Where you're trying to look at what's best for the greater good.
Yeah.
Always think about the greater good, right? And the things that we do that they can help more people, not just a particular company or a particular industry, but in fact it helps. Look, solar and wind. The more investment we have in that's going to help the public.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to provide more energy.
Yeah, the more supply and bring prices down, and it's less toxic and things like that. So, You know, Raymond, Richard Raymond, we learned a lot today. I want to thank you for coming by. I think, it'll be, thank you for for coming by for the take two. Um, we're here to anything we can do to support, the industry of energy
Sure.
and innovation. You can count on us and everybody at home. I hope you guys had a good otra vez ya me falta el refill, pero I hope everybody at home had a nice little relaxed time and enjoyed listening to Mr. Raymond share some insight, and how it is in the government section, part of the the train that moves, the locomotive that moves these communities. So again, I hope this isn't our last time. We're like I said, thankful, and we wish you nothing but the best. I know there's challenges every day that you face, and we thank God that they have people like yourself that are called to make a difference. And I can't nothing but the good things to say about everybody out there trying their hardest. And after the elections are over, hope we can have another beer.
Absolutely.
We're here. Aquí tienes tu casita.
Hey, win or
Muchas
lose,
gracias.
win or lose, I'll be back. But if you're old enough to vote and you're in my district, I hope you'll vote for me. I respectfully ask for your support.
Sir.
And but
Nomás
I'll be back.
Y que no sean Texans fans. Nada, te creas.
No, mira, I just.
I don't need
I don't have-
their
look, I'm Dallas Cowboy all the way. I would love to see the Cowboys and the Texans in the Super Bowl, because the Cowboys are NFC, National Football
Okay.
Conference. The Texans are American Football Conference. So that, to me, it's not a conflict of interest. If you like
Okay.
the Texans, one of my friends, I had put something on Facebook one time about the Cowboys, and y me mandó un text. Pues, or I was doing an interview or something, and he saw it. Pues, también hay Texan fans, And I go, pues está bueno. I mean,
¿Qué quieres que haga, güey?
that's okay. Hey, we're not going to stop you from going to the Super Bowl. The Texans, I would love for the Texans to get to the Super Bowl, but I want my Cowboys in the Super Bowl. And then I'm going to be for the Cowboys, and if you want to be for the Texans, está bien, pero no te va a ir bien.
Pues no te enojes, güey.
No te va a ir bien.
Pues no me hables cuando estés llorando. Pues saludos a los Cowboy fans, como dicen, puro pinche Cowboy.
Puro pinche Cowboy.
No.
That's right, man.
Well, thank you for ending it on a good note, porque si los Texans como que me caen, nada, no te creas. But, Rafita, ¿algo?
No,
Gracias.
gracias.
Gracias. Como la canción de José
Así
Alfredo.
Sí, ahí.
¿Cómo puedo pagar?
Ahí se las encargo que la escuchen, de José Alfredo. Luis Carlos, thank you for coming on and being part of sharing a little talk with us and having a beer with us. So
Yes, sir.
Peace
thank
out.
you, Richard.
Yes, sir.
Peace. Thank you. Again, What the Peg. Listen to, denle like, ¿no? ¿De qué es? Like, share, compártanlo, síganlo, güey. Pues aquí vamos empezando, echándole ganas. Y espero que les guste. A lo que no les guste, pues también los quiero mucho. Y saludos a todos ahí, lo de la racita y a everybody here backstage. Thank you for que no se agüitaron, güey, después de que la primera tú con madre la plática y luego no se grabó, pero aquí we're still here and we're seguimos adelante. So, ya me voy a callar, ya me